April 29th, 2022, in Bayside Station, in the fallout shelter, still whatever, in the residents in the area. And so I'm watching this Mission Impossible. They have a gemologist on. I find it interesting. Because I know nothing about gems or their chemistry. Again, another process I wasn't exposed to, or was not like a guided pathway to success of learning for whatever reason. Although the humans around here, I've heard them say the word conundrum. Not quite sure what it ever means, because they blurt things out. They don't put much process into thinking about the words and the formation and what the word patterns and things are. Just whatever. They don't really mince the words. It's whatever. But she's saying something about the corundum and the fact that the British imperial crown, it turns out, did not have a real ruby. It, in fact, had a spinel. Go figure.
Hardness is the resistance to scratching. Toughness is the resistance to breaking or chipping. These gems here look like they're easy to identify. They're different colors, they're different shapes. But that's not always the case. That's why you need a gemologist. All of these are sapphires. They all come from the same mineral family, corundum. But what makes them different colors is their trace element. To get a blue sapphire, you need iron and titanium. But if you have chromium, it'll turn red, and we call that a ruby. But not all red stones are rubies. Here we have another fabulous red stone. It's called a spinel. In Great Britain's imperial crown, what they thought was a ruby, decades later, they actually discovered that it was a spinel. Ruby and spinels are hard to tell apart. And the way we can is through gemology. Let's go to the lab.
Mackenzie examines gems in this laboratory using specialized equipment to look past appearances and determine the chemistry of the stones.
In their crystal form, a ruby is growing in a hexagonal formation, like a barrel. A spinel...
Again, even this level of education is not taught in the local New York area. Unless you have some kind of specificity or some kind of career track or some kind of interaction with personality testing for however you're born, with whatever gifts you were excited about, whatever, and then they help guide you on the path that you really are the best fit for. They don't do any of that around here.
Spinel crystal is going to grow in an octahedron shape, like two prisms on top of each other. But once they are faceted and cut into gemstones, much harder to tell which is which.
There are about 20 characteristics gemologists look at when investigating gems, and the first step is closely examining the stones.
A couple of things I'm looking for to see if there's any abrasions. I'm looking for chips or any kind of fractures, for brilliance, the luster. Now let's look at stone number 2. I see some fractures. Kind of dull, but still fiery. I'm still not sure which one is which.
Mackenzie moves on to the refractometer.
Each gemstone has its own specific refractive index.
The refractive index measures how much light will bend when traveling through a material. You'll notice light refracting when traveling through things like water. And the same principle works in denser materials, like gemstones.
I'm getting a reading at a 176. Now we'll examine stone 2, 1.71.
Next, using this powerful microscope, Mackenzie looks for inclusions, particles, or irregularities trapped in the stone.
I'm looking...
Now, what's really interesting is all of the equipment in order to build these institutions in this learning conundrum, if you will. How many pieces of equipment go into building this size lab? I mean, how many gemologists do you really need in the world? Why are they concentrated in one room, but yet there's multiple facilities that are built and ordered this much equipment and built this much potential hazard in the future? I mean, this equipment gets old and then they want to upgrade their equipment And then what do you do with the old equipment? These recycling programs going to lesser estate members as like inheritance is a problem. Because if this is an imperial science or a royal allowance of family members on the estate, why would you ever allow this to non-family members? Even in inherited equipment, it becomes so dangerous in a long-term speculation like plan.
Looking for specific characteristics that help me tell which is which. I'm seeing like almost like silk-like needles or wispy veils. In stone too, I'm kind of seeing almost like a fingerprint look, like a cluster of little crystals.
Now, Mackenzie moves to test the fluorescence of this.
But it's like all of these really like super cool like labby device things that everybody orders. It's the same thing with the medical field around here. And then by the time they've put so many people through it, then it's like, oh, why don't we within the next 10 years, why don't we upgrade again? It's just more and more revolutions on the same problem track without actually fixing what's broken.
The stones with the aptly named fluorescence instrument, which produces UV light.
This instrument will tell us who has more chromium in it based on their fluorescence. One is fluorescing much stronger than the other. This is a good indicator that this is probably the ruby.
The last test Mackenzie is doing today involves this instrument, which can help determine something called specific gravity. Each stone is weighed 2 times, first alone, and then again placed in a beaker of water. The specific gravity is the weight of the gem.
They don't teach this level. And if they do, in some kind of like quick throw it at them so we can say and check a box that the words were heard by their humans. So this way then we don't have to like whatever. Again, that new like insidious behavior. I don't know. But it doesn't stick. It's not like, I mean, there's no reason why memory should not be photographic. The human animal has the possibility for photographic memory and for photographic memory recall. Why are they not even functioning at a level of held captive in a room? They taught something for years, but yet the machine is unable to recall what was spoken to it decades into the machine, whatever. I mean, I know there's a larger machine break, that's for certain. I can see it everywhere, I can feel it. I've been documenting it out in like real world life science. But then there's the pieces of, I can see there were other levels of education, and I can see even in the children that they're developing at different levels. I don't know why. I don't know who's involved, but it's a real problem. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies, broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.